found my bride getting destroyed by my best man during rehearsal, recorded everything, played it at the altar. Her parents watched their daughter betraying me. Her dad attacked me with a chair. Wedding became a battlefield. Some betrayals are so deep they change your DNA. When the two people you trust most in the world destroy your life together, the only response is total annihilation. I learned this lesson the night before my wedding, when I discovered my fiancé and best man had been fucking behind my back for months. My name is Jake Morrison. I'm 32, and this is the story of how I turned what should have been the happiest day of my life into the most brutal public execution of two backstabbing pieces of shit who deserved everything they got. I met Sarah Collins 3 years ago at a marketing conference where we were both presenting. She was smart, beautiful, and had the kind of ambition that matched my own drive to succeed. We clicked immediately over drinks after her presentation about digital strategy, and within 6 months we were living together. Sarah was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. She was successful in her career as a marketing director, financially independent, and shared my vision of building a power couple lifestyle. We bought a house together, traveled extensively, and seemed to have the perfect relationship that made our friends jealous. My best friend Marcus had been in my life since college. We'd been roommates, business partners in a failed startup, and each other's wingmen through countless relationships. Marcus was my automatic choice for best man when I proposed to Sarah after 2 years of dating. "Dude, I'm honored," Marcus said when I asked him to be my best man. "Sarah's perfect for you. You guys are going to have an amazing life together." Marcus had been recently divorced and seemed to be struggling with dating, so I was happy to include him in our wedding planning as a way to keep him engaged with our social circle. Sarah was supportive of involving Marcus in our plans and often suggested including him in dinners and weekend trips. "Marcus seems lonely since his divorce," Sarah would say. "We should make sure he feels included." I thought it was sweet that Sarah cared about my best friend's emotional well-being, especially since some women might have been jealous of a close male friendship. The wedding planning process took about 8 months, during which Marcus was heavily involved in bachelor party planning, venue selection, and coordinating with other groomsmen. He and Sarah often texted about wedding details when I was busy with work, and I appreciated that they were handling logistics without requiring my constant input. "Sarah's been so helpful with planning your bachelor party," Marcus would tell me. "She has great ideas about what you'd enjoy." "I'm lucky to have both of you managing the details," I would reply. "It takes a lot of pressure off me." Looking back, I realized there were signs that something was happening between Sarah and Marcus, but I was too trusting and too busy with work to pay attention to the subtle changes in their behavior. Sarah started mentioning Marcus more frequently in conversation, bringing up things he had said or done that seemed unusually detailed for casual interactions. "Marcus told me about this restaurant he went to last week," she would say. "He described the menu in detail and thought we might like it for our anniversary dinner. Marcus has been working out more lately. He's really getting in shape for the wedding photos. Marcus thinks we should hire a videographer for the ceremony. He made some good points about wanting to capture the memories." These comments seemed normal at the time, but they indicated that Sarah and Marcus were having much more personal conversations than I realized. Marcus also began showing unusual knowledge about Sarah's preferences and opinions that seemed beyond what he would know from group interactions. "Sarah mentioned she's been stressed about work lately," he would tell me. "Maybe you should plan something special to help her relax. Sarah's been thinking about changing her hair for the wedding. She's nervous about whether you'll like it. Sarah was disappointed about having to cancel that weekend trip you guys planned. She was really looking forward to it." Again, this seemed like thoughtful concern from a good friend, but it suggested they were having intimate conversations about our relationship that felt inappropriate in retrospect. The most obvious sign that I missed was how often Sarah and Marcus ended up alone together during wedding-related activities. "Marcus and I are going to look at flowers while you're in your meeting," Sarah would say. "Marcus offered to help me pick up the wedding favors since you're working late. Marcus and I are meeting with the caterer to finalize the menu. We can handle it if you're too busy." I was grateful for their help and didn't think it was strange that they were coordinating wedding tasks together. But I now realized they were creating opportunities to spend time alone while using wedding planning as cover. The bachelor party, which Marcus organized, was the weekend before our wedding. It was a 3-day trip to Las Vegas with 8 of my closest friends, and it was everything I could have wanted: great food, shows, gambling, and quality time with my friends before getting married. This has been perfect, man, I told Marcus on our last night in Vegas. I can't believe I'm getting married in a week. Sarah's a lucky woman, Marcus replied. You're going to be an amazing husband. The irony of that conversation still makes me sick. We returned from Vegas on Tuesday, and the wedding was scheduled for Saturday. The week was a blur of final preparations, family arriving from out of town, and the usual pre-wedding stress and excitement. The rehearsal was scheduled for Friday evening at the church, followed by a dinner at a nearby restaurant for the wedding party and immediate family. Everything had been planned meticulously, and I was feeling confident that our wedding day would be perfect. The rehearsal itself went smoothly. We practiced the processional, the ceremony timing, and the recessional until everyone knew their roles. Sarah looked beautiful and seemed excited about the next day. Marcus was the perfect best man, helping coordinate the other groomsmen and making sure everyone knew what they were supposed to do. Great job, everyone, the wedding coordinator said after we finished the final run-through. Tomorrow is going to be beautiful. We were scheduled to head to dinner after the rehearsal, but I realized I had left my jacket in the church storage room where the groomsmen had been getting ready earlier. I'll just grab my jacket and meet you guys at the restaurant, I told Sarah and Marcus. Do you want us to wait for you? Sarah asked. No, go ahead and get the table. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I walked back into the church and headed toward the storage room, which was located in a hallway behind the main sanctuary. The church was quiet and dimly lit, with most of the lights turned off after the rehearsal. As I approached the storage room, I heard voices coming from inside. The door was partially closed, but I could hear what sounded like Sarah and Marcus talking in hushed tones. My first thought was that they were discussing some last-minute detail about the wedding, so I approached the door to join their conversation. But as I got closer, I realized the sounds I was hearing weren't conversation. I heard Sarah moaning in a way that I recognized from our intimate moments together, followed by Marcus's voice, saying things that definitely weren't about wedding logistics. My heart started pounding as I realized what I was hearing, but my brain couldn't process that my fiancé and best friend were actually having sex in a church storage room the night before our wedding. I carefully pushed the door open just enough to see inside the room, and what I saw destroyed my entire world in an instant. Sarah was bent over a table with her dress hiked up around her waist. Marcus was behind her, thrusting into her while holding her hips. Both of them were completely absorbed in what they were doing and had no idea I was watching. I stood there in shock for several seconds, unable to move or think clearly. This was so far beyond anything I could have imagined that my mind couldn't process what I was seeing. Then my survival instincts kicked in, and I quietly pulled out my phone and started recording. I filmed them for about 3 minutes, getting clear footage of both their faces and their actions. The audio picked up Sarah calling Marcus's name and him talking dirty to her in ways that made it clear this wasn't their first time together. You feel so much better than Jake, Sarah moaned at one point. I've been wanting this all week, Marcus replied. Tomorrow's going to be torture, watching you marry him. We'll figure something out after the honeymoon, Sarah said. Maybe Jake will have an accident. That last comment made my blood run cold. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning to continue it after my wedding, possibly by harming me. I stopped recording and quietly backed away from the door, my mind racing with rage and the beginnings of a plan for revenge. I could have confronted them immediately, but that would have given them the opportunity to manipulate the situation, make excuses, or turn the blame on me somehow. Instead, I decided to let them finish their betrayal and then destroy them both in the most public and humiliating way possible. I walked back to my car and sat there for 10 minutes, processing what I had just witnessed and planning my next moves. My first instinct was to call off the wedding immediately and expose them to everyone at the rehearsal dinner, but I realized that would give them time to come up with explanations or damage control strategies. A better plan began forming in my mind, let them think they had gotten away with their betrayal, then destroy them in front of everyone at the wedding ceremony itself. I drove to the rehearsal dinner and acted completely normal, chatting with family and friends while Sarah and Marcus pretended to be innocent participants in my wedding celebration. Where were you? Sarah asked when I arrived at the restaurant. We were starting to worry. Sorry, I ran into Father Murphy and he wanted to discuss the ceremony timing. I lied smoothly. Sarah and Marcus both seemed relaxed and happy, apparently confident that their secret was safe. I watched them interact during dinner, noticing touches and glances that I had previously interpreted as friendly but now understood as sexual tension. They were sitting across from each other at the long table, occasionally making eye contact and smiling in ways that made me want to vomit. To Jake and Sarah, Marcus said when he stood to give his rehearsal dinner toast, may your marriage be everything you both deserve. The room applauded and cheered, while I smiled and pretended to be touched by my best friend's words, knowing that he was secretly planning to steal my wife and possibly eliminate me from the picture entirely. Thank you, Marcus, I said when it was my turn to speak. I can't wait for everyone to see the special surprise I have planned for tomorrow's ceremony. Sarah looked at me with curiosity. What surprise? You'll have to wait and see, I said with a smile. But I promise it will be unforgettable. That night, I went home and spent hours preparing for the most important presentation of my life. I edited the video I'd taken, creating a highlight reel that clearly showed Sarah and Marcus having sex while including the audio of their conversation about continuing their affair after my wedding. I also prepared backup copies of the video and uploaded it to a private YouTube account that I could access from my phone. My plan was simple. During the ceremony, when the officiant asked if anyone had any objections to the marriage, I would play the video for everyone to see. I barely slept that night, alternating between rage at their betrayal and excitement about the revenge I was about to unleash. The morning of the wedding, I acted completely normal. I had breakfast with my groomsmen, got dressed at the church, and went through all the pre-ceremony preparations as if nothing had changed. You ready for this, buddy? Marcus asked as we waited in the side room for the ceremony to begin. I've never been more ready for anything in my life, I replied truthfully. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m., with about 200 guests in attendance, including both our families, friends from college and work, and various relatives and family friends. I had spent the morning coordinating with the church's audiovisual technician, telling him that I had a special video surprise for Sarah that I wanted to play during the ceremony. It's a montage of our relationship that I want to show instead of traditional vows, I explained. Can you set it up so I can play it from my phone? Of course, the technician said. That's very romantic. You have no idea, I replied. The ceremony began perfectly. The processional music played, the wedding party walked down the aisle, and finally Sarah appeared in her wedding dress, looking beautiful and radiant as she walked toward what she thought would be the beginning of our married life. I stood at the altar, watching her approach, feeling a mixture of sadness for the end of what I had thought was a loving relationship and anticipation for the justice I was about to deliver. Dearly beloved, the officiant began, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Jake Morrison and Sarah Collins in holy matrimony. I went through the first part of the ceremony on autopilot, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal what I knew. Before we proceed with the vows, the officiant said, I understand that Jake has prepared a special video presentation for Sarah. This was my cue. Yes, I said, pulling out my phone. I have something very special that I want to share with Sarah and everyone here today. Sarah looked surprised, but pleased. Jake, you didn't have to do anything special. Oh, but I did, I said as the technician connected my phone to the church's projection system. This video shows exactly who you really are. Sarah's expression began to change as she realized something was wrong, but it was too late. The video began playing on the large screen behind the altar, immediately showing Sarah and Marcus in the storage room. The church erupted in gasps and screams as 200 people watched my fiancé and best man having sex in graphic detail. What the fuck is this? Sarah screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the audio from the video, which was now playing through the church's sound system. Marcus tried to run toward the projection equipment, but my groomsmen blocked his path. The video continued playing, showing the full 3 minutes of footage, including the audio of Sarah and Marcus discussing their affair and their plans to continue it after our wedding. Sarah's parents were sitting in the front row, and her mother fainted when she heard Sarah moaning Marcus's name on the audio. Her father, a large man who worked in construction, stood up and started walking toward the altar with murder in his eyes. "You fucking bastard," he yelled at me. "How dare you humiliate my daughter like this?" "I didn't humiliate your daughter," I replied calmly. "Your daughter humiliated herself." Sarah's father reached the altar and swung at me with his fist, but I was expecting it and ducked out of the way. Marcus's wife, who was sitting with the other spouses, had been watching the video in horror and now understood why her husband had been distant and secretive for months. She stood up and started screaming at Marcus, calling him every name in the book while their two young children cried in confusion. The church was now in complete chaos, with people yelling, crying, and trying to figure out what was happening. "Turn it off," Sarah begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Jake, turn it off." "Why?" I asked. "Don't you want everyone to see how much you love Marcus? Isn't this what you wanted?" The video ended, but the damage was complete. Everyone in the church had seen undeniable proof of Sarah and Marcus's betrayal. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the crowd, "there will be no wedding today. As you can see, my bride has been fucking my best man behind my back and planning to continue their affair after our honeymoon." Sarah collapsed to the floor in her wedding dress, sobbing uncontrollably. Marcus tried to approach me to explain, but Sarah's father intercepted him and punched him in the face, breaking his nose. "You son of a bitch!" Sarah's father yelled. "You destroyed my daughter's life." "I destroyed her life?" Marcus replied, blood streaming from his nose. "She's the one who seduced me." This comment enraged Sarah's father even more, and he grabbed a folding chair from the front row and swung it at Marcus, hitting him in the shoulder and knocking him to the ground. At this point, several people called 911, and the police arrived within minutes to break up what had essentially become a riot in the middle of a church. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one of the officers said to me as they tried to restore order. "Am I under arrest? We just need to get statements from everyone involved." I was taken to the police station, along with Sarah, Marcus, and Sarah's father, who was charged with assault for hitting Marcus with the chair. "Mr. Morrison," the detective interviewing me said, "can you explain what happened at the church today?" I showed him the original video on my phone and explained how I had discovered Sarah and Marcus having sex in the church storage room the night before our wedding. "So you recorded them without their knowledge and then played the video publicly?" "I recorded them having sex in a public place where they shouldn't have been having sex. And yes, I played it publicly because I wanted everyone to know the truth about what kind of people they really are." "Mr. Morrison, what you did was legal, but it was also extremely destructive. Do you understand the consequences of your actions?" "Do I understand the consequences of exposing two people who betrayed me in the worst possible way? Yes, I understand them perfectly." The police ultimately determined that I hadn't committed any crimes since I had recorded people in a public place and had the right to share what I had recorded. Sarah and Marcus were released without charges, but their lives had been effectively destroyed by the public exposure of their affair. The video went viral within hours, as several wedding guests had recorded my presentation on their phones and posted it on social media. Wedding cheating and best man betrayal became trending topics on Twitter, and the story was picked up by multiple news outlets as an example of how social media could be used to expose infidelity. Sarah lost her job at the marketing firm where she worked, as the viral video was considered damaging to the company's reputation. Marcus's wife filed for divorce immediately and was awarded full custody of their children due to evidence of his infidelity. Marcus was also fired from his job at a financial services company that had a morality clause in their employment contracts. Both Sarah and Marcus became pariahs in our social circle, with mutual friends cutting contact and refusing to associate with them. The wedding venue refused to refund any of the money we had paid, since the cancellation was due to personal drama rather than their failure to provide services. Sarah's parents had to deal with the humiliation of their daughter's public shaming, and her father was required to attend anger management classes after his assault charge. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Sarah and Marcus had moved to different cities to escape the notoriety of their viral cheating scandal. Sarah apparently moved to Portland and was working as a waitress, unable to find marketing work due to her internet infamy. Marcus moved to Phoenix and was working construction, having been blacklisted from the financial industry. As for me, I became something of a folk hero among men who had been cheated on. I received thousands of messages from people congratulating me on my revenge and sharing their own stories of infidelity. "You did what every cheated on person wishes they could do," one message read. "You exposed them publicly and made them face real consequences." I also received criticism from people who thought my revenge was too extreme and cruel. "You destroyed two people's lives over a mistake," one comment said. "That level of revenge is psychotic, but I have no regrets about what I did." Sarah and Marcus didn't make a mistake. They made a calculated decision to betray me while planning my wedding and pretending to be my closest supporters. They were planning to continue their affair after my marriage, and had even discussed harming me to eliminate me from their situation. The public humiliation they experienced was exactly what they deserved for their callous betrayal. 2 years later, I'm in a relationship with a woman named Jessica who knows the whole story and respects what I did to protect myself from people who were trying to destroy my life. "You showed incredible strength," Jessica told me when I shared the story. "Most people would have just confronted them privately and let them continue manipulating the situation." "I wanted everyone to know exactly who they really were," I replied. "No more hiding, no more lies, no more manipulation." The experience taught me that sometimes the most devastating betrayals come from the people closest to you, and that public exposure is the only way to ensure that predators face real consequences for their actions. Sarah and Marcus thought they could use my wedding as cover for their affair while planning to destroy my life after the ceremony. Instead, they provided me with the evidence I needed to destroy their lives first. Sometimes the best revenge is simply showing people the truth about who they're really dealing with. And sometimes that truth is so shocking that it becomes legendary.